Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a really deep look, a luxurious sip perhaps, into one of the world's most famous single malts, Glenfiddich.
That's right. We've got some great sources here, insights from people who really know their spirits. The idea is to give you a fast track, really, to understanding what makes Glenfiddich tick.
Yeah, what's their DNA? Our mission today is figuring out how they became this huge global name. How did they basically invent the single malt category as we know it? How do they keep such tight control over production up there in Speyside? And what's driving their flavors today? It's about tradition, yes, but also scale and maybe, surprisingly, quite a bit of risk.
And you absolutely have to start with the foundation. The anchor for Glenfiddich is William Grant founding it in 1887, and the fact that it's still family-owned more than a century later.
Wow.
In an industry where brands get bought and sold constantly by massive corporations, this continuity, this family ownership, it's rare, and it shapes everything they do.
Okay, so let's dive into that beginning. This wasn't some big corporate plan, was it? It sounds like pure hard work. Dufftown, Speyside, William Grant, his sons, his daughters, building it themselves.
Literally, 7 sons, 2 daughters. Building the distillery by hand, stone by stone. It's an amazing start.
Incredible.
Took them over a year, and that first spirit finally ran off the stills on Christmas Eve, 1887. But, the moment that really changed the game for Glenfiddich, maybe for the whole whiskey world, was much later, 1963.
Right, this is the big one, the audacious move. Because up until the 60s, blended whiskey was king, wasn't it?
Completely dominated. Single malt was, it was mostly just an ingredient for blends. You hardly ever saw it bottled on its own outside Scotland.
So Glenfiddich just decided to sell it internationally.
Exactly. They decided to bottle their single malt and market it globally. Think about that risk. They were asking people to pay more for something unfamiliar, completely breaking the mold of how Scotch was perceived and sold.
That single decision basically created the modern single malt category. They turned an ingredient into, a star.
It cemented their place. And it wasn't just a one-off gamble either. That kind of thinking, that resilience, you see it earlier too. Look at Prohibition in the U.S.
Ah, interesting. What did they do then?
Well, most distilleries were struggling, cutting back, closing down even. Glenfiddich, they did the exact opposite. They actually increased production.
Increased during Prohibition. That sounds counterintuitive.
Totally. But they were betting on the future, building up huge stocks of aging whiskey while the market was dead.
So when Prohibition ended?
Bingo. They were ready. They had massive amounts of aged whiskey ready to go just as the American market reopened and everyone was thirsty. It shows that long-term view, that willingness to take calculated risks. It's baked into the family approach.
And even the name reflects that grounding, right? Glenfiddich.
Yes, it's Gaelic, means Valley of the Deer. Hence the stag logo, which everyone recognizes, connects it straight back to Speyside.
Okay, so that's the history, the spirit. But to understand how they manage global consistency and keep innovating, we need to look at the actual production, the scale, the control.
Control is definitely the word. Their capacity is huge. 13 million liters a year, massive operation. But the unique part is how much they do themselves. They're one of only 3 distilleries bottling everything on site.
3? That's it?
That's it. And they've got warehousing for up to 800,000 barrels right there, too.
800,000 barrels. That number's hard to even picture. But you mentioned control going beyond just bottling. The craft side?
Precisely. They have their own cooperage, their own coppersmith, employed right there. This isn't just for show. It's a real practical advantage.
Okay, explain that. What does having your own cooper actually let you do that, say, a big competitor outsourcing barrel work can't?
It's about flexibility and precision. If a specific sherry cask needs a careful repair, or maybe they want a custom char level for an experiment, they don't ship it out and wait. Their cooper does it right there, right away.
Ah, okay. Instant adjustments.
Exactly. It means total control over the wood,
Right.
which gives whiskey maybe 70% of its final flavor.
Yeah.
They can fine-tune things in-house, almost on demand. Same with a coppersmith maintaining those vital stills.
That hands-on control makes sense. And it leads to specific techniques too, right? Like for the 12-year-old. The marrying tun.
Yes, this is crucial for consistency, especially for a flagship product sold everywhere. So after the whiskey ages for at least 12 years in ex-bourbon casks and ex-Oloroso sherry casks,
They don't just mix them in bottle.
no, they take all those different barrels and put the whiskey together into these huge marrying tuns made of Portuguese oak. And they let it rest there, marry, for about 9 months.
9 months just resting together.
Yeah. It lets all the different characteristics from the individual barrels really meld together, harmonize properly. It's like a final polish, smoothing out any tiny variations between batches. It ensures that bottle of 12-year-old tastes the same in Tokyo as it does in Toronto.
Consistency as an art form. Okay, since we're on the 12-year-old, let's talk core range. How do they use different casks to create different experiences for you, starting with that original 12?
Right, the Glenfiddich 12. It's really the quintessential Speyside malt, isn't it? Very reliant on those American oak ex-bourbon casks, so it's fresh, it's clean, quite fruity.
Pear, green apple.
Definitely pear, green apple, maybe some light citrus, and then that soft vanilla, honey sweetness from the bourbon wood. It's just, it's the benchmark. Super approachable, one of the world's best sellers for a reason.
Okay, then you jump up to the 18-year-old, the small batch 18. What changes? Still sherry and bourbon casks.
Still Oloroso sherry and bourbon casks, yes. But the key here is small batch. They bottle this in much smaller runs, maybe only 150 casks at a time.
So more selective.
Exactly. It lets the master blender pick out the absolute best casks from that age group. The result is much richer, more elegant. You get notes shifting towards roasted nuts, deeper caramel, maybe some baked apple, dried fruits, even a hint of dark chocolate. It's a step up in complexity.
Right. But the real technical showpiece in the core range, the one borrowing from wine, is the 15-year-old, right? Our Solera 15.
Oh, absolutely. This is where they adapt the Solera system, famous from sherry making in Spain. It's clever. They mature the whiskey in 3 different types of casks, sherry, bourbon, and new oak. Then they bring it all together in this one giant Solera vat.
And the key to Solera is that the vat is never fully emptied, is it?
Never. When they draw off whiskey for bottling, they only take about half. And they immediately top it up with newly matured 15-year-old spirit from those 3 cask types.
So there's always older whiskey mingling with the new.
Precisely. Think of it like a continuous river of flavor. It builds incredible depth and consistency over time. It means every bottle has traces of much older whiskeys in it. The flavor profile is complex. Lots of honey, warm spice like cinnamon, rich dark fruits. It really shows their blending mastery through this dynamic process.
That willingness to borrow techniques like Solera from Spain seems like a good bridge to their more recent innovations, the experimental series. This is where they really push things.
Yeah, this is where they consciously challenge tradition. The first one to talk about is the IPA finish, Experimental Cask Number 1.
IPA, as in India Pale Ale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They collaborated with a local Speyside brewer, Seb Jones. They created a special IPA beer, seasoned casks with it, emptied the beer, and then immediately filled those casks with Glenfiddich whiskey for a finishing period.
Okay, what does beer cask finishing do to the whiskey?
It adds some really interesting notes. Lively citrus, definitely. A sort of crispness. More green apple, some floral hints maybe. And underneath it all, a subtle hoppy character. Quite bright, quite modern tasting.
Interesting. Then they explored rum finishes too, but in different ways. There's the 21-year-old Gran Reserva.
Right, the 21-year-old is finished in Caribbean rum casks.
Oh.
That one's very smooth, sophisticated.
Yeah.
You get vanilla, spice, but with those lovely, rounded tropical fruit notes from the rum. Very elegant.
But then there's Fire and Cane. That sounds different. Experimental series number 4.
Oh, it is different. Fire and Cane takes that rum cask idea, but throws in a twist. Peat smoke.
Smoke. Glenfiddich isn't really known for peat, are they?
Not traditionally, no. So this was a bold move internally. They took their classic bourbon-aged whiskey and blended it with some of their rare peated single malt. Then they finished the whole blend in Latin American rum casks.
So you get smoke and sweetness, Fire and Cane.
Exactly. It's this fascinating balance. The peat smoke isn't aggressive. It's more like a soft smolder. And it plays against the rich sweetness, the toffee and caramel notes from the rum casks. It really works, showing they're willing to step outside their usual Speyside comfort zone.
And the last one to highlight from that series is XX, the 20 series. This was collaborative.
Very collaborative. XX stands for 20. They invited 20 whiskey experts from 16 different countries to the distillery.
Okay.
Each expert chose a cask they loved, something they felt represented to that. Glenfiddich. Could be anything. Sherry, port, bourbon, virgin oak. A real mix. Then the master blender, Brian Kinsman, had the job of blending all 20 of these diverse casks together.
Wow, that sounds like a challenge.
A huge challenge. Yeah. But the result is this incredibly complex whiskey, bottled slightly stronger, at 47% ABV. It's like a snapshot of global whiskey expertise all brought together in one bottle. It speaks volumes about their openness to new ideas.
What strikes me listening to all this is that even with the wild experiments, the IPA, the smoke, this global XX blend, it all seems underpinned by that same control and precision we talked about earlier.
I think that nails it. That's the key takeaway for you. Glenfiddich's success rests on this unusual combination.
Yeah.
You got the bedrock of family ownership, that meticulous control, down to having their own coopers and coppersmiths.
Right.
But then they layer on top this genuinely fearless approach to innovation, especially with casks. Mastering Solera, borrowing from beer, playing with peat and rum.
Yeah.
They aren't afraid to try things.
It really does circle back to that 1963 decision, doesn't it? Surviving wars, prohibition, then basically inventing a category by breaking with tradition. It shows a kind of institutional courage.
Yeah, the courage to challenge the status quo, even when you are the status quo, in many ways. Which leads to a fascinating thought for the future, really.
Go on.
Well, if Glenfiddich could revolutionize whiskey by bottling single malt back then, and now they're borrowing from brewing with IPA casks and from wine with Solera, what's next? What other techniques from brewing or winemaking, or maybe something else entirely, could they or another adventurous distillery use to reshape whiskey all over again?
That's a great question. Something for you to ponder next time you're looking at a whiskey label, trying to figure out the story behind that cask finish.